Welcome back to Beginner Woodworker, guys. In today's video, I'm making my first ever table together with a client from start to finish. So when I say client, it's actually my good friend Lars, who really likes my stuff, and he wanted me to make a table for his parents' 70th birthday. So Ina and Michael, I really hope you like it. So Lars really wanted to challenge me, and he asked me to make the base as well as the tabletop, which as a beginner I had never done before. And he wanted one of those X bases, and I got stuck here. I needed to cut 2 notches out to put the X flush together. I couldn't really figure it out, so I decided to take a break and get on with the tabletop itself. When it comes time to cutting the wood, it can be really nerve-wracking because as soon as you've cut it, there's really no turning back. And if you make a mistake, it can be really difficult, if not impossible, to fix. And for this project, Lars and I spent a lot of time choosing the perfect piece of wood. I even needed to drive to Germany to pick it up. So luckily, everything went to plan, but I think next time I need to take a little bit more time before I start just cutting things up. So of course, out of the 2 sides of wood that I got, the much thinner side had all of the cups and bends in it. So I had to get out my trusty router sled and flatten this bit up before I could put it into the mold. And I literally had zero margin for error here because it was already quite thin and I didn't want the table to get any thinner. So I really had to take my time and be patient and make sure I didn't make any mistakes. So in theory, making the mold for the epoxy resin and the wood is a pretty easy and straightforward process, but if you make any mistakes, it can cost you. It is going to spill everywhere, it's going to make a huge mess, it's going to cost you time and money, and it's super frustrating. If you don't believe me, have a look at any of my other videos where that happens to me every single time, but luckily I did learn from my lesson and it didn't happen this time. Much to Lars' disappointment, because it seems he really likes to see me suffer. So if there are any of you out there who really like watching these kind of videos and like the idea of woodworking, one thing I'll tell you is it's really important to be a very patient person. I try to keep my videos as entertaining as possible, but what you don't see is the amount of times I have to redo a setup like this where you just get finished and then you have to redo everything, or the amount of sanding or redoing cuts and things like that. It can be really frustrating, and sometimes it can really make you want to just give up and can get you really angry. So that's why I say it's really important to be as patient as you can when doing a woodworking project, especially as a beginner when you're going to make more and more mistakes. Speaking of making mistakes and being patient, I totally did not put enough mold release on this melamine, and instead of just popping off nicely, it took me hours and hours and hours just to peel all of this melamine off. So there you go, Lars. I didn't get a spill, but at least I suffered a little bit. On the subject of being patient, when working with olive wood, one thing to note is it is filled with cracks, filled with holes. So this really took me a long time, going around filling all of those holes, all of those cracks with epoxy, letting it all dry over a couple of days, sanding it all down, and then repeating that process again and again. And when I was finally done, I had to flip over the table and do the other side. So it was finally time to come back to the table base, and as you can see here, I had quite a few failed attempts until I finally decided to come back and use my miter saw to get the job done. So at this point in the build, I'm getting really excited. With those table legs finished, I didn't quite like the color of the wood, so I decided to use a walnut stain, which I really did prefer in the end. But right from the beginning, I was really worried about making the base because I had no idea how to do it. I was a little bit worried about the top maybe being too thin, but at this point, everything's really coming together and I'm getting real excited. Also for the base, it wouldn't have stood on its own, so I needed to put this bottom plate on there. Lars really liked the idea of making it black, and I think it turned out really cool using that black stain. And for my favorite part of any build is putting the finishing oil on the table and putting everything together. So I hope you guys like this video. I hope you guys like the table. Do let me know in the comments what you think. Subscribe if you want to see more. If you don't want to see more of my content and don't want to subscribe, also let me know in the comments, what can I do differently? What do you want to see? Thank you all so much for watching, and take care.